Solar panels, they can actually lower your home's value and make it much harder to sell. And if you're a homeowner thinking of selling, you need to hear all this today. And as a homeowner or home seller, you probably heard the mixed messages about these solar panels. And do they really save you money? Are they, as some claim, a scam? And in reality, solar panels may offer some significant benefits, from possibly helping with your electric bills to possibly increasing your home's resale value, but all the details matter. And in this video, we're going to break down solar panel basics and tackle those big questions and concerns raised by many homeowners, and also from my experiences with all my home sellers as well. And some of these questions we'll answer are: will solar raise your home's value? And what's the difference between leasing and owning those solar panels? And how long until they pay for themselves? And also, if you plan to sell your house, is going solar really a smart move? So grab a pen and paper, and we're going to discuss this controversial topic and hopefully shine some light on some facts about going solar for your home. Now, really quick, we'll cover what solar panels are, and they're devices that convert sunlight into electricity. And when sunlight hits the cells in a solar panel, it generates an electric current that can power your home's appliances and lighting. And in a typical setup, your home still stays connected to the energy grid, and during those sunny days, your panels may produce more power than you actually use, and the net metering allows you to send that excess energy to the grid, often or possibly earning you credits on your bill. Now, the goal is to reduce the amount of electricity that you have to buy from the utility, and over a year, a well-sized solar array can significantly cut your utility cost. However, there are some common misunderstandings that the utility is going to start paying you money if you go solar, and that's very rarely the truth. And most places credit your excess generations towards your future bills rather than cutting you a check. So basically, these solar panels can lower your bills, but just don't expect a monthly check from that power company unless you're in some sort of special program. Now, from a practical standpoint, solar panels are built to last a long time. Typically, they say 25 to 30 years or more. Manufacturers usually warranty panels for about 25 years, and even after that, they just don't stop working. They just slowly produce a bit less. And so a panel might lose around 0.5% efficiency per year, meaning after 20 years, they still might give you roughly 90% of what they used to. And they also say that they require minimal maintenance since they have no moving parts. Might need to rinse them off occasionally if they get dirty or clear snow in the winter. And in about 10 to 15 years, probably replace that inverter. And many of the comments and polls that I do on these, people are surprised at how low maintenance solar systems are. And there's a myth that you'll always clean these all the time and fix them. But in reality, routine upkeep, I guess, is pretty light. And it's also worth noting that if you ever need to replace your roof, the panels can be removed and reinstalled, though that does add a cost, and we'll cover that later as well. So it is smart to ensure that that roof is in good shape before you install these panels. Now, the big thing here that I always get asked about, especially from my lending days as well, is beyond saving on electrical bills, do these solar panels that are often pitched as boosting your home's value, do they really? And let's explore if that's true and by how much. And this is always a key question for homeowners and especially home sellers. And the short answer from multiple studies is yes, if you own a system, solar panels, depending where you live in the region of the United States, it may increase your home's resale value. And there has been some studies here that found homes with owned solar sell for more than homes without. And obviously that'll depend on your area. And I do have from Fannie Mae here all the guidelines as far as how solar panels are valued on a home. And I'll put that in the description so you can upload this and take a look in case you're wondering how they value solar panels when getting a loan. Now, if you look at how they add value and what these analysts say, you'll notice that most of the places when you're searching are these solar panel companies that do pitch the fact that they do, in perspective, add additional value to a home. And they do give it a breakdown and so forth. But again, just be cautious of all this. As again, it'll depend on what area you're in, how much that they may add, but usually in locations like where I'm at out here in Colorado, I still have yet to see an advantage of having owned solar panels on your home. And again, the key is owned, and we'll get into that here shortly. Now, if you lease your solar panels, which a lot do, or you have what's called a power purchase agreement, that's a totally different story. And we are going to dive into leasing versus owning here coming up. And lease panels don't get added into a home's value the way that owned panels do, depending on what area of the country you're in. Because in a lease, the panels are owned by a third party and not you, so they're not considered a permanent improvement that a buyer is purchasing. And in fact, studies indicate leased solar panels have no statistical impact on home sale prices at all. And most of us real estate agents that are familiar with solar, they're going to confirm this too, that lease systems, they don't add value. They actually are seen as a detriment for the new buyers because of having to assume that liability. So take note of that while we're covering this. Now, factors that play into how much value solar adds, obviously location matters. Sunny states or areas with high electrical rates, buyers may value those solar systems more than in areas with cheap power. And the size and the age of the system counts too. A newer sizable 10 kilowatt system that covers most of the home's needs is more attractive than a tiny older 3 kilowatt system that only makes a little dent on electrical bills. And the remaining warranty and condition of panels can influence buyer perceptions as well. And if your system is almost new, under warranty, that could be a selling point. But if it's 20 years old, near the end of its life, most buyers don't want to pay any type of premium for that. Now, as we move forward through the years, solar may become more mainstream, and having those panels owned on your home may eventually be seen as a plus in the real estate market. And you're basically then selling a house that has a built-in lower electric bill, which could be a tangible benefit to some and possibly could be highlighted in your listing, again, depending on the area of the country that you live in. So yes, own solar panels, they could help your home's value and often recover a good portion of that investment. But what about those different ways that you can finance those panels? That part really influences both your finances and the sales process. So now let's compare owning versus leasing in depth, since this was a hot topic in a lot of the comments, and it's a hot topic with all of my clients as well. So let's get into that. Now, one of the biggest decisions when you go solar is how you're going to pay for it. You typically have 3 routes. You can pay cash, or you can take a loan to own that system, or you can lease that system or sign that PPA where a company owns those panels and you pay monthly for the energy. But let's break down what each of these mean for your wallet and your home's resale value if it applies. Now, buying solar panels outright means that you own that system on your roof, and that has big advantages. It could possibly, as we said, increase your home's property value depending where you're at, as the panels, they're considered part of the property. And then the tax credit incentives, this is a big topic too. And when you own, you can qualify for these incentives like the federal investment tax credit that's currently 30% of the system cost as a credit on your taxes. But there is a catch here on this, and you need to know this. That only applies if you own taxes to get that incentive. And if you don't, that can carry over till you do have a tax bill. But the people that sell them, they pitch this up front, and people don't understand how that all works as far as a tax credit. So just take note of that. If you don't ever have a tax bill, those incentives don't really apply. Now, as far as billing and return on investment, the benefit from these panels obviously produce lower energy bills. And after the system so-called pays for itself, you essentially get free power for the remaining life of those panels. But let's do a return on investment example here in a little bit and just see how long it takes to get that. And if you own those panels outright, there's not any ongoing contract constraints, the system's yours. You can upgrade the panels as you wish, repair them, you can even throw them away. And no one's going to have to give you an answer if you want to say you have to add a battery or maybe relocate those panels for a remodel, obviously aside from any type of permits. And owning means paying up front or taking a loan. Now, a typical home solar installation can cost anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 before any of those tax incentives, depending on the system size and, of course, your local prices. And for instance, your system may cost you $22,000 after that 30% tax credit for, say, an 11 kilowatt system. But again, that all depends on your area. And many homeowners, they don't have that kind of cash on hand. So what do? They just finance those, which again, that brings in a monthly payment along with interest. And the good news is usually those monthly loan payments are often designated to be lower than your electric bills. But just remember, with a loan, you're paying huge interest, so the total cost is higher than cash in the end. But you do get the tax credit still if you're able to, and possibly that addition to your home value because you own that system. And if you sell your home while you're still paying off this loan, you'll usually need to pay off the remaining loan balance during the sale, as it's similar to any type of a payoff as a lien on your home, such as home improvement loan or a second mortgage at closing. So just remember that. And then that new buyer, they get solar panels that are free and clear as part of the home. Now let's look at leasing or that power purchase agreement. And a solar lease means you do not own these panels. A solar company actually owns them, and you pay that company a monthly fee to use the solar power. And in a lease, typically, you pay a fixed monthly amount for the solar, whereas the PPA means you pay per kilowatt hour of energy generated. And for simplicity, we're just going to lump them together because from a home seller's perspective, they're similar. And in both cases, there's a contract with a company that usually lasts 15 to 25 years, and it stays with the house. Leasing, it does have some appeal. There's no big upfront cost. There's no loan hassle. And often the solar company handles all the maintenance. It can be good for you if you can't afford to purchase. It also, just remember, is pitched as ideal if you're not sure if you're going to stay in the house long. And ironically, this is where all the problems arise. The downside of leases shows up in both that monthly savings and a home sale situation. And as mentioned with a lease or a PPA, you are not eligible for that 30% tax credit or rebates. Those actually go to the system owner, which is the solar company. So you're going to miss out on those major financial perks that owners get. In monthly savings, it may be smaller. Those leases are structured so that your monthly lease payment is a bit less than your average electric bill would be. And you do save money each month. Maybe your $150 electric bill is replaced by a $120 solar lease payment. So your savings is $30 a month. But this is like a car lease. These solar companies are going to ask you what you're paying now, and they're going to structure these payments to be around that or less. So just be cautious. And it's still a savings, but compare that to someone who actually bought these panels outright and might not have any type of an electric bill. The owner's monthly savings on those are larger once their systems are paid off. And some of these people that I have polled through the past, they noted that these leases, they feel like it's trading one bill for another with less benefit. And also that added home value, can't stress it enough, lease panels generally do not increase your home's value. I don't care what the salespeople say, you need to understand the differences. And since you don't own them, they're not really considered part of real estate. In fact, here in Colorado, they file a UCC on your home till they're paid off. And a buyer doesn't pay extra for a house that comes with someone else's equipment that they have to pay a monthly payment on. And speaking of that, these panels that are leased especially can complicate selling your home. And when you sell, you have to either transfer that lease to the buyer or you have to buy out the remainder of the lease yourself. And we're going to talk about selling scenarios in a moment. But it's clear that leases add a layer of additional paperwork and negotiation to any home sales. And some home buyers might even be turned off by the idea of taking over a lease, it can definitely narrow your pool of potential home buyers out there. So just keep this in mind. And again, many of the folks that I've pulled on my YouTube channel, they were very unhappy with these, and they even felt scammed where they entered into these expensive leases. They didn't understand the terms. And on the flip side, many of those who own their systems outright, some were very positive, reporting payback periods as short as 5 to 6 years, and even getting a significant savings thereafter. And one solar owner even went on to say they achieved a full payback on their system in about 6 years, and they called their investment a no-brainer. And in hindsight, it's quite the opposite of a scam in their case. So anyway, let's just talk about return on investment quick on this, and how long until your solar panels can pay for themselves. And in other words, when does the amount you've saved on those bills equal the cost you paid on the system? And that time is known as that payback period. And on average, a home solar panel system in the United States has a payback period of around 6 to 10 years. And that's a broad range because it depends on a few key factors: the cost of your system, the incentives you may get, how much sun your location receives, and your local electricity rates. Now let's break it down with some scenarios here, and we'll use some round numbers for an illustration. So let's say you install a system that costs $20,000 total, and this is somewhere in the ballpark for a medium-sized residential system. And let's say those incentives that you actually qualify for that 30% tax credit, and 30% of that $20,000 is $6,000. So effectively, your net cost is $14,000. And some states even offer some programs that might even knock that down even more, but let's just stick to these federal credits. Now let's look at an electric bill savings on that scenario. How much will this system save you per year? And this depends on obviously how big the system is and your electrical rates, but let's assume the solar setup produces about 10,000 kilowatts an hour per year, and that's roughly what an average US home uses in electricity annually. If your rate is 15 cents per kilowatt hour, that energy would have cost you about $1,500 if you bought it from that utility company. So in year one, your panels save you roughly about $1,500 by offsetting your bill. Now on an annual basis, with that $1,500 a year of savings on that net $14,000 investment, you'd recoup your cost in roughly 9 to 10 years. And after 10 years, that system has paid for itself, and each year of free power beyond that is like a profit. And if your rates go up over time, your savings each year could actually increase, shortening that payback period a bit. Now imagine if you live in an area with those higher costs, let's say 25 cents a kilowatt hour, like certain places in, say, California or the Northeast. Those $10,000 kilowatt hour a year would have cost $2,500 from the grid. And in that case, you'd be saving $2,500 a year, and your payback on that $14,000 net cost might actually be 5.5 to 6 years. So again, based upon these two scenarios, it's really going to be a personal up to you if that's a great return on investment or not. And this is why some of the people that I have polled on my YouTube channel from those high-cost electricity states were very happy with those solar investments and actually bragging about those 5 to 6 year paybacks. Now on the flip side, you live somewhere cheap, maybe it's 10 cents, and that 10,000 kilowatt hour, you only save $1,000 a year. And then a $14,000 system takes about 14 years to pay back. So the economics, as you can see, vary widely here. It's very important to do the math for your specific situation, or your quotes for your system costs, what your utility rates are, and any local incentives if applicable. And many people, again, in these comments where I've polled, shared their numbers, which helped others see how different things can be in different areas of the country. Now, if you're financing those panels with a loan, your payback calculation is a bit different because you're paying interest, and so you need to factor in the total you'll pay over the life of the loan. However, many homeowners look at it this way: that their loan payment's $100 a month, it replaces a $150 a month electric bill, and they're cash flow positive by $50 each month. They're saving more than they're paying, even though they haven't technically paid off those systems yet. And after the loan is paid in, say, maybe 7 to 10 years and the bill drops to zero, then that's when the full savings kicks in for those people. And finally, you have to consider the system life. And most of those panels will keep producing 25 plus years. So if you hit that payback in 8, that's 17 years of bonus savings after that break-even period. Even if it takes you 12 years, I guess that could still be a decade of further savings afterwards. So I guess if you're thinking of panels, just weigh those options as well. So anyway, enough with those numbers. Let's just do a few examples of some homeowners who went through solar and sold their homes so we can give you a real example here. Now, this lady, will just say her name's Alice. She purchased a 5 kilowatt solar panel system for her home back in 2015. The cost was about $18,000 at the time, and she got a 30% tax credit and a state rebate, bringing her net cost to around $12,000. And over the next 7 years, Alice enjoyed an average of $1,400 a year in electric bill savings. And by 2022, she had effectively saved nearly $10,000 on power, close to covering her net cost. And when she decided to sell her home, her own system was a selling point because she was in a region that supported the value of this. And her real estate agent highlighted this ultra low electric bill in their listing. And the buyers that happened to find that home really loved the idea of almost no energy cost. So in the end, Alice's home sold, they say, for $15,000 more than a similar home without solar in that area. And in her case, that combination of the electric bill savings plus that higher sales price more than paid off her investment. And the buyers that bought her home, they were thrilled. They effectively paid more for a house and got ready to go panel set up where they can get decades of life that's left in those panels. So anyway, this scenario is increasingly common in markets where solar is popular. Just take note of that. And it shows that owning can be a win-win. Now let's look at the lease hurdle here. This client's name was Bob. He went through solar through a lease program. He had no upfront costs. Instead, he agreed to pay a solar company $120 a month for 20 years. This was lower than his usual $180 electric bill, so it all sounded good. About a $60 monthly savings, and Bob loved those lower bills, but 3 years into that lease, he got a job offer out of state and needed to sell his home, and now he faced the challenge of what to do with that solar lease. Now, the potential buyers, they liked his house, but some were very uneasy about committing to pay $120 a month for the next 17 years for these panels. And one interested buyer hadn't even heard of a solar lease and was concerned about the contract terms and what those panels needed in repairs and basically backed out of the deal. And after a lot of back and forth on a negotiation, Bob decided to buy out the remainder of the lease to make that sale easier. Now, that lease contract allowed an early buyout, but it wasn't cheap. We're talking $10,000 to purchase that system outright. Bob went ahead and paid that, and the solar company transferred the ownership of the panels to him and then to the new buyer. So essentially, Bob prepaid the lease so the buyer could have those solar panels with no strings attached. The home sold, and while it did sell for a bit more due to having an own solar system, the extra few grand in sales price he got didn't fully cover the $10,000 he spent for that buyout. So in the end, Bob realized that while that lease saved him money each month, it became a bit of a burden at sale time and ate into his profit. So the lesson here is, if you might sell your house before a lease is up, plan ahead. Either be ready to transfer the lease to someone with good credit or have a plan to buy that out. And leases can work out if you stay long enough, but they definitely, and I can attest to this, complicate a home sale. So anyway, there's an example, couple examples of some real situations there. And owned systems tend to yield a positive experience at a sale, while the lease systems, as you can see, require careful handling. And the key to all this, planning and communication. And if you have a lease, notify your realtor of this up front, and also let these potential buyers know early and explain the options. And if you have an owned system, make sure to highlight those benefits as well, and maybe show some of your electric bill savings and so forth, as real data can assure buyers that maybe solar is worth it. Well, I know we've covered a lot here, and we'll just try to cover a little practical advice for those considering solar, especially if you're thinking about future resale of your home. Now, if you're a homeowner intrigued by solar, but also conscious of eventually selling your home, here's some tips and things to ensure you get the most benefit with the least hassle. Make sure you do your homework and get multiple quotes from different companies. Like any major purchase, at least get 2 or 3 quotes from reputable solar installers. Make sure they've been around a while and compare not just the price, but the equipment quality, warranties, and look at the company's reviews. And beware of any of those deals that just sound too good to be true. Use your online calculators to estimate potential savings. This upfront research is going to help you avoid overpaying or signing for some of those unfavorable contracts. And as the saying goes, don't fall for these sleazy sales tactics. Always run those numbers yourself. Knowledge is power. And one thing to do if you can is consider your time in the home. Be honest about how long you plan to stay there. If you think there's a good chance you'll move in a couple of years, the math on buying solar is tougher. You might not be there long enough to reap the payback. And in that case, if you still want solar, you could lean towards a PPA lease, knowing that the next owner may have to take it on, or possibly a smaller system just to offset some usage. And if you plan to stay 5+ years, purchasing is generally the better route because you'll hit maybe that return on investment sweet spot and possibly add value to your home again, depending where you live. And many experts suggest a minimum of 5 to 7 years in your home for buying solar to really make financial sense. Otherwise, you'll want to ensure the sale value makes up the difference. And if you lease, please read the fine print. Leasing isn't necessarily bad, but you need to understand the terms. What's the escalation rate? Is there an option to purchase a system at certain points? And what are the terms for transferring this to a new owner or buying it outright if you sell your home? And before you sign any lease or PPA, imagine if you had to move in 5 years. How would that work? Some companies will facilitate a transfer easily if the new buyer qualifies, while others might require you to pay it off. I've seen both through situations here in Colorado. And as we saw earlier, one option often is to buy out the lease before selling and essentially converting it to an owned system for a smoother home sale. And knowing the cost of this upfront can influence your decision. If a lease has no buyout option, that's a big red flag if the resale is even on your mind. Another thing homeowners don't think about is coordinating that installation too with any home improvements. You need to think about your home's needs in the next 5 to 10 years. And is your roof due for replacement soon? If so, it's wise to replace an aging roof before putting that system on, or do it simultaneously. And some of those solar companies even offer roofing services or work closely with other professionals, and a brand new roof under your panels means you and future buyers won't have to worry about an expensive remove and reinstall job in a few years. Oh, and also you need to check your electrical panel if it needs an upgrade. Solar installs sometimes involves adding a new circuit breaker, and on older homes, they may need a panel upgrade. And by bundling these upgrades proactively, you make your home more sale ready. And if your home's in an HOA, you need to ensure you follow any required approval process as well. Well, we covered a lot there. And if you found this video informational, please share it with somebody who can benefit from it. And if you need help in your area with a real estate agent that is well-versed with solar panels, contact links down below. I can help you connect with somebody. Or if you have questions on them, I can talk to you that as well. Again, don't forget to download this about how properties are appraised with solar. And also, stay tuned for this next video coming up next.